Welcome, coaches, to this week's episode. We're going to dive right into part two of our interview with Coach Adam Sarancik, an author of 4 baseball coaching books, the author of countless articles for all the big publications in the baseball coaching world. We're going to dive into part two of our 2-part interview with Coach Sarancik today. He's going to share out a ton of tips for all of us so we can elevate and coach up the mental game with our players. Coach Sarancik is awesome at giving actionable, specific tips that we can use later today if we want. Real quick, before we dive in, head over to 8020baseball.com after this episode, read the coaching articles, watch the coaching videos, get the free drill design guide. And the thing that's going to elevate your game the fastest and easily the most is the coaching plan that's available. That was years in the making, thousands of hours to put together the 80/20 baseball coaching plan. It's available on the website, 8020baseball.com. And one of the things that was the most difficult when I was putting it together was only putting in what youth baseball coaches need to be successful. So, everything that's in there that you use is going to make a big impact. It takes out all the guesswork. It's the most direct path to being a great coach. Whether you're a new coach or an advanced coach, this is for you. You get direct access. You can start using it later today. I give you all my best drills on my 75-inch touchscreen. Each drill comes with a list of FAQs to help you quickly get your answers so you can run the drill at a high level. Each one comes with a PDF that you could print out and take to the field to guide you as you implement it. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that comes with that 80/20 baseball coaching plan. Even if you just used half of it, you're going to get way more than twice your money's worth. I promise you that. There's a 30-day money back guarantee. I believe that strongly in it. And I tried to price it at a point that gives you everything you need for a very reasonable price. I think it's probably the best deal out there for youth baseball coaches. So that's on the homepage at 8020baseball.com. One last thing is most youth baseball practices run average or mediocre drills. And so that's mostly all of what we see. Then there are good drills, then there are great drills, and then there are optimized drills. There are elite drills, and that's what you're going to find at 8020baseball.com. All right, now we're going to get into part two of our interview with Coach Sarancik. Over 40 years of baseball coaching wisdom. He's sharing it out with all of us. Let's dive into part two where Coach Sarancik and I discuss elevating the mental game for all of our players.
Yeah, I think we have to remember that we are teachers, role models, and mentors to our players. As we talked about it before, our players are going to remember a little of what we said, a little of what we did, but they're never going to forget how we made them feel. We have a tremendous impact on our players, and it can be very positive, both short term and long term, and unfortunately can be very negative. And it can impact not only how they play for us, but more importantly, what kind of student they are and what kind of son or daughter they are and friend they are. They're learning life lessons from us within the game for beyond the game. A lot of those life lessons are learned by the way we communicate with them and how they communicate with each other, because they have to learn that this is a team game. We're holding ourselves accountable to a standard here. We're building a culture here. And that's going to carry over to the classroom. It's going to carry over on the job or whatever. So we have to never forget that many of the most influential people in the lives of these players are their coaches. If you ask every player that's ever played who had some of the greatest impacts as a teacher, role model, mentor growing up, many of them will choose a coach. Sometimes it's not a good thing. This coach impacted me in a very negative way. It took me years to get over the way the coach treated me or made me feel. A good friend of mine played 4 years of college basketball for a very, very Hall of Fame coach. She started for this coach for 4 years at the D1 level. She spent 10 years in therapy after playing for that coach. As great X's and O's coach as that woman was, Hall of Fame, one-loss record, but it was an abusive relationship. It was terrible. Unfortunately, a lot of that goes on at the youth level too, in sometimes very innocent ways. Coaches don't really know the impact that they're having. So a couple of categories here. What can coaches do better in communicating with their kids, and what can players do? It's a two-way street. What can players do to help the relationship and what they're getting out of it better? The first and cardinal rule of coaching is when things do not go well, look first in the mirror with honest intent. So many times coaches reflexively yell out to the field, about what a player should have done in a given situation. That's coaching backwards. Like you said, coach, let's coach forward, save that for another day. But they never think about, well, what did we as coaches do or fail to do to prepare that player in practice so that that didn't happen? The fingers have to be pointed at ourselves first. Look in the mirror first with honest intent. Secondly, we have to remember that, especially with young people, a lot of the most powerful things are not what we say, but our nonverbal stuff, our tone of voice, our distance from the player when we're giving feedback or we're communicating, the size difference. Are we towering over this kid? Are we a 6'3" adult speaking to a kid that's 4'8"? Gestures, are we pointing at the kid when we're giving our comments? If it's something constructive, we don't want to be standing over the kid pointing at him. Not cool, right? And we have to have our coaches monitor our tone of voice and all these nonverbal behaviors too, because they're very impactful. And sometimes we're not even aware of it. We may do it in other aspects of our life at home or at our job. We're not even realizing the tone of voice or the distancing or the body language that we're exhibiting when we're communicating with kids. What are your thoughts on those two?
Yeah, I love this topic because at the end of the day, a decent amount might play high school ball, but a very few will play college ball or get a scholarship, continuing their baseball career or their sports career into college. And just a tiny, tiny, tiny amount will ever play professionally, much less make a living off of it. But, almost every single one of them will become an adult. They will become an older teenager and an adult that this thing we call baseball and sports is that wonderful, fun vehicle that we can utilize to help our kids be much better. Because, we sit around as adults a lot of times when we gripe about society and, no, this generation, this younger generation, they don't get. Well, this is our way to be able to shape and mold in a fun way rather than sitting up there at a lectern, and sitting there in a study hall lecturing. We get to use baseball or other sports as a fun way to get them ready for life. So this topic right here, I just love. I'm excited to hear, and I'm looking at a lot of your tips that you're going to go through, and I'm excited to hear these.
We always talk about good process leads to good results. But what kind of process are we really rewarding here? Remember, we're teaching life skills within the game for beyond the game. It's the quality of the person, not the player, that's the most significant outcome. So we want to make sure that when we are emphasizing process, that we're not just working on the sport skills, that we're also working on the personal skills too. And when we're giving out rewards, we're giving them out for process, respecting the process, not just the result. We should be rewarding those personal skills more than the baseball skills. All of the leadership, the intangibles, right? The leadership, the hustle, the work ethic, being a good teammate, picking each other up, all of those things. And I think we need to make an effort to relate those things to life. That's really an awesome thing that's going to make you such a good employee someday, such a good manager. It's going to make you appreciated so much more by your teachers. It's going to be something your parents are really going to be proud of you for, that you have this ability to pick another player up. I think we need to proactively tell the players this, relate what they're doing and why we're rewarding it to the other parts of their life. In baseball, and maybe sports in general, we've relied on learning by inference. I think we can do even better than that. I think we can relate to them right now when we're coaching them, how this is going to help them be a better student, sibling, son, daughter, whatever. So I think we have to remember those things in a bigger, more holistic way. Of course, keep the ratio of positive to negative 99 to 1. One of the things that is often overlooked is players and coaches are under a time crunch. They want to improve their team, but they forget that to truly understand and connect with the player to help them improve, we have to know what's going on in the player's mind. The feedback about improvement needs to come from the player, and it needs to start with what they did right. So you're working on a hitting drill and the player popped the ball up. Well, now the player immediately goes to, oh, I didn't hit a line drive. I didn't hit it hard. Okay, what did you do right? Tell me, what did you do right? This is such an important skill to teach a player that, you know what? It's not all about the failure, okay? You did a lot of things right. You're constantly building their self-esteem that way. Okay, now give me one thing that you think you could have done better that we can work on moving forward. But start with the process, start with what they did right, and don't tell them, ask them, have them start with a positive. And then when it's your turn to speak, again, start with a positive because they're not going to probably even be used to thinking about what they did right. And then let's work on something to get better. That's just a really good habit. Keep and reward the energy and feedback from the team and teammates positive. Just constantly reward positivity. Motivate by catching the players doing something right. Okay, let's motivate by inspiration, not intimidation. We are going to catch people doing something right and motivate the team that way. I'll give you a real quick example that I observed last winter at a hitting bar. You had 12 guys on the team, and 2 or 3 guys, a particular hitting station, were messing around. We're fooling around. We're not cooperating. The coaches decided to send the entire team out in 40-degree weather and have them run this hitting bar. This was a youth team, and it was in a hitting bar adjoining a high school varsity field. The coaches made the entire team go out and run poles for the next half hour. And these were 11 and 12-year-olds. That's what they thought was the best way to teach these kids about focus, effort, and discipline during a practice. And it was completely counterproductive. First of all, the guys that were doing it right couldn't figure out why they were running. Secondly, the entire team was exhausted and couldn't even do the drills for the remaining practice. The coaches never even took a minute to consider, is there a reason why these kids were not cooperating? Did we not choose the right drills? Did we not teach using a methodology for those 3 kids that they could relate to? They never for a second looked in the mirror with honest intent, right? And then the result was just absolute disaster. It just shocks me how immediately we go to the negative and the motivation by some kind of punishment, making kids run. Here's the other point. Well, how about we reward the 9 guys that were doing it right with extra reps? Instead of calling out 2 or 3, it's like, hey, good job over there. You guys did so well. You're going to get to be team captains for the game sim at the end of practice. It's like, maybe we should start treating this differently. We get rewarded if we do it right, as opposed to sending the whole team out for a run. You see that a lot, Coach, this default to running and punishment instead of figuring out a positive way to inspire your team?
Yeah, I do. And I like the kind of the mindset, more carrot, less stick. Let's go carrot as much as we can. The reward, more reward, praise versus criticism or the punishment by, say, running. And the year was 2001. I was sitting in a class first day at Long Beach State. Professor Grant Hill, he'd been a veteran on the kinesiology department there. It was my first class with him. I sat there in the kinesiology building, and the first thing he says to us for this particular class was, never, ever, ever have your kids run as a punishment. And we all
Mhm.
thought, well, this guy's lost it because that's all we knew. He goes, it's wrong on a lot of levels, but just think about this. You guys want to be kinesiology. You're trying to get people to move and be active. You're trying to get people healthier and more in shape and better fitness. And now you're telling them that the punishment is the thing you want them to do. They hit me. I go, oh my gosh, he's so right now. There are many reasons why we should definitely use more reward. I loved your example, coach, of instead of telling the
Yeah.
kids to go out. I mean, it's wrong on 2 or 3 levels of just going out and spending 30 minutes outside running. But I love how you turned it around and didn't just tell the listeners, don't do that. Try this instead. I really like how
Yeah.
you used more carrot
Yeah.
there.
Role model at all time in practice and games what you're asking your players to learn. I'm just shocked the number of coaches that say, stay present, stay positive, and yet the coach is constantly chipping at the umpire. Well, how is that staying present and staying positive? The coach is constantly yelling out to the field what we should have done. Okay, no, no, no. The play is at second base there, or we need to cut down the lead runner there. We're constantly working backwards, and yet that's not the same situation anymore. The situation has changed. So you're asking me to stay present, stay positive, and yet you're constantly dragging my mind backward, or you're constantly losing your cool when you're asking me to keep my cool and stay at an even keel. So we need to be the role model at all times in practice and games, what we're asking our players to do. Give praise publicly and constructive criticism privately. We want to help these kids, but we don't need to shout out what the kid could do better to the entire team. Let's try to keep those constructive moments more private and the praise more public. Always remember the constructive criticism is always about the play, never about the player. So I think most coaches are pretty good about this. What we need to do there is this to make this a better play. It's not about, you know, Johnny, you tend to always do this. Now you're making it about the person. It's not about the person. This is about our team, how we're going to get better. So let's talk about the play, not about the person. Never breach a player or a team confidence. If you do have a good relationship with your players and player lets you know that he or she is struggling with something in their life right now, and it's, their focus may not be where it needs to be as a team dealing with something that doesn't get told to anybody else for any reason. What happens here stays here. Okay, now, if it involves player safety, of course, the players, parents, guardians need to know. Okay. But we're not talking about this to other teams, other coaches, just people in general. What happens here stays here. We're always coaching forward. Coach forward, not backward. If you have something to say to a pitcher, take a mound conference between innings. If you have something that you want to communicate to the team about the way we could have handled that better, again, between innings at the next practice. But let's coach forward and let the players play. Be brave enough to lose. Just deal with what your coaching has allowed your team to do and accept the result with dignity and class. After the game, I really feel that we should ask the team for nothing but positive things. They're not going to forget the negative stuff until the next practice. Let's figure out how they were better people, athletes, and players today, because that's going to give feedback to us about how we can be better coaches and let us know where their mindset is. You'd be shocked at the number of teams when a coach asks them this, they don't have anything positive to say at all. All they can think about is they gave up a walk-off run in the last inning to lose the game. They completely forgot about all the positive things that led up to that. Kids today are not verbal. They're device people. They're used to scrolling, texting, doing things with their hands on a device. They're not good at expressing themselves. They're not good at self-advocacy. We need to get them to come out and be able to verbalize these things and feel these things. All right. What did you do today as a teammate that you feel good about? Can you tell me something that a teammate of yours did or said that made you feel good, that picked you up? These are the lessons immediately after the game we should be focusing on. How we can turn a double play better. Well, see Coach Adam and Coach Bo's comments about how we as coaches can do better between innings. But after a game, I really think that so much of the time that we're going to spend, if we're going to spend time on a knee in the outfield after a game, should be spent on the positivity of these players and what they've done so that they can take something home in a positive manner. Be a master teacher. We talked about that before. I won't say it again. If you want to have less discipline problems, teach them more, have them learn more. But when you're teaching them, teach them that even when bad things happen, there's going to be good things that happen too, not just now, but in the future. Yeah, there's some bad things that happen today, but there's a lot of good things too. That's life. Okay, you're going to have a tough test at school. You're not going to do well, but you're not going to let that tank the rest of your classes. You're going to go and have a good day and a good result in another class. You're going to get better in that one class that you didn't do well. But good and bad happen every day. We're going to work on the things that didn't go well, but we're going to appreciate the positive that happened every day. That's the same thing in sports. I made an error. I gave up a run. May even been the winning run. But you know what? There was a whole lot of other things I did well too. Okay. And those are the important messages, and we need to relate them beyond the sport. Then there's some proactive things that you've talked about in your prior podcasts. Let's just quickly emphasize them again. A lot of the problems that coaches have come from off the field. They come from parents. They come from fans. You need to have that preseason meeting of expectations before the season starts, and maybe even occasionally during the season, about what we expect from parents as, leave the coaching to us, you be the parent, let the kid be the self-advocate. There's a problem, I want to hear from the kid first. I'm talking about his playing time, not the other teams or players' playing time. Fan conduct between innings or during innings. Everything is positive. Never calling out a player's name. You're cheering for the team. Nothing is ever directed at an umpire for any reason at any time. And all those kind of things should be handled proactively before the season even starts. So we have a ground rule of what this team is and what it's all about. And if you're not okay with development over wins and losses, maybe you need to find another team. I think we can be more proactive in the way that we teach. I think we can use quotes acronyms, guest speakers, role plays, things like that in a very proactive way. My lessons, my practice plans always have quotes in them, and we discuss them as a team and relate them to things outside of the game as a student, as a player. Every one of my players, for example, knows four: family, opportunity, recreation, dreams. They all learn it very early on. They're able to carry on a conversation using it with somebody they don't know, haven't talked to before very often. They know how to ask the person about their family, ask the person about them being a student, occupation, or what they do for a living, recreation, what they do for fun, and dreams. What's tomorrow look like for you? What's next year look like for you? What's 5 years look like for you? Every one of my players use in high school know how to use four, just as an example of one acronym that I teach all my players, especially since they're not verbal and they need to learn how to talk and learn how to be, have social skills. And I tell them this is going to matter at job interviews too. It's not all about you. You're going to develop rapport by using Ford, family, occupation, recreation, dreams with the person that you're talking to. You do have to learn what's going on generally with the players' lives. You have to connect with them on a personal level so that you can understand what they're going through. As students, you have to talk to them about the classes that they're taking and how many sisters and brothers they have. You have to remember when they step on the mound, they're taking their life with them. When they look into home plate and they hear that crowd yelling, they're hearing their mom, dad, sisters, or brothers, or maybe they're not. Maybe every other player on the team has a mom or a dad cheering for him, and that guy on the mound doesn't have a dad there cheering for him. He doesn't have a mom there cheering for him. You need to know these things, and you need to factor that in to, who you're coaching and how you can help them be better and get more out of what you're trying to tell them or teach them. The first step in making a player believe that they're a good player is to get them to believe that they're a good person. Okay. The first step in making a player believe that they're a good player is to make them believe they're a good person. They need to know that they have skills, talents, and character traits that make them a good person. And it's going to translate to other areas outside of this sport. And it's going to make them loved and appreciated. And oh, by the way, what happens in the game has nothing to do with the love that you're getting from your parents, your family, your teammates, your coaches. This isn't about who you are as a person. This is a game. You're loved and you have great things about you. You can't just tell them that. You have to reward and work with these things so that they start to believe it. All right. Yeah, you're right. I did help this person today feel better about themselves. I did, in a very PC way, help my teammates feel accountable for who we are and what we're all about. Finally, this is a competition. Let's not forget that we're competing out here. So if we want our players to be successful, we have to build competitions. They're constantly competing every day to be a better person, to be a better athlete, to be a better player. So we are rewarding and competing with who can do these things to be a better person. In our dynamic movement and athleticism portion of our practice, we're competing to be better athletes. And as players, we're competing so that we learn how to control what we can control and adapt to what we can't control. That's a huge lesson in sports, a huge lesson in life. I can control my training. I can control my attitude. I can control my preparation. All these things I can control. The rest of the stuff's going to impact me, but I have to be able to adapt to them. The more often we compete, the more often we're going to be successful when we compete. Last two things. Number one, probably the biggest thing when these players are carrying their lives out to the field that they need to learn that is really causing a lot of mental health issues right now with young athletes is we need to teach them the difference between being responsible to your team, your teammates, your coaches, and your family versus being responsible for them. Okay. You're not responsible for the feelings of your team, coaches, or family. How they feel, how they react is on them. Anger, for example, is always about the person who is angry, never about the person at whom the anger is directed. Okay. So, but players sometimes feel like when they're out there in that mound, if I don't pitch well, my dad's going to be upset. My mom's going to be upset. My teammates are going to be upset. That's not on you. That's their feelings. That's them to deal with. My responsibility is to give my best effort. I'm responsible to them for my best effort. How they feel about it, that's on them. That's a tough, important distinction for a young player to learn. And then finally, I don't think the youth teams do enough community service. They do a ton of fundraisers, especially club ball teams. They reduce their fees by going out and doing fundraisers. Well, that's fine. Sometimes even, obviously necessary. But I really think to build a charitable spirit in life, we need to do a lot of things that we're not compensated for. All right. We should be going out and doing community service, you know, high schoolers coming down and help maintain the fields of the youth teams going out and cleaning up roads and just doing things generally without the expectation of a monetary return. My high school teams, one of the many things we did was we collected used baseball bats and gloves and things like that and sent it down to Mexico for, there's called an organization that was called GRIP International. And so we collected used equipment and sent it to kids in Mexico or any foreign country for them to use because they don't have it. So anyway, that's the section on coaches and teams in general. We can stop there. And I've got a few I'd like to talk about from the player's perspective if you want to go a little bit longer, or we can call it there. What do you think, Coach? You want to comment on that and move on to the player section? Where are we at?
Yeah, I'll make a few observations. And I will say a couple things that stood out to me. So much good stuff that you just shared, Coach. A couple simple ways on that last point to do community service, just a couple quick and easy ways to get the ball rolling, to have your players go around the park and pick up trash, bring trash bags and have them pick up the local park. You're already there and you say, we're going to go spend 15 minutes, 10 minutes, and I want every kid to pick up 50 pieces of trash. Watch out. Some kids will rip that one piece of paper into 10 pieces. Watch that. I've seen that. But have them go around, pick up the trash. Have them leave the dugout nicer and in better shape than they find it all season. Now, these are small things. I'm just trying to think small. You mentioned some more global
Yeah.
things. We're start somewhere small. Okay, we're going to go clean up the park, or we're going to go and sweep. We're going to have two people bring some brooms and sweep the restrooms, or help out with the local Little League park, clean the dugout. The dugout should always be left better than you found it. Now, back on a topic you talked about earlier about living forward or coaching forward and playing forward. One thing I've been using with my kid and with my wife, we've been really trying to utilize the language and this message to ourselves as a family. It's not, we should have done that. We could have done that. That shoulda, woulda, coulda. Instead, we use the phraseology, the wording, the verbiage of next time. Instead of we should have done this, next time we're going to do this. Next time. So as coaches, that you say, hey, we should have backed up on that play. Next time, we're going to back up on that
I love
play.
it.
We're going to
I
back
love
up
it.
our
Really.
teammate on that play. So just some simple tips. There was one other way. Oh, getting to know your players.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
a preseason survey, and this can be done by the parents at a younger level. A preseason background, just a little survey or a little background that they could share with you via email, or they could write it and hand it to you, that you as a coach, when you have some downtime in the first couple weeks of the season, or ideally before the season, you could learn a little bit about your player. Like say, hey, what are the three things you think I should know as the coach to better serve you? Another thing that I recommend is talking to your parents before the season or as soon as possible. Tell them, please, parents, email me immediately if something comes up in your player's life, in your family's life. Please, if you think it's something that will impact and you think it's something as a coach I should know so I can better help your kid and serve and be a better coach, please keep me abreast of the things I should know in their life. Let me know. And I'm not going to make a big deal about it at practice. I'm not going to bring it up in front of the team, but at least I'll know coming into practice, this is something that's going on with Junior in his life. You have the preseason proactive. Tell me about yourself, kind of email or a little background. What's one thing or two things you didn't like past coaches doing? So you get a little background. I wouldn't ask for too much here, because if you ask for too much, you're going to get nothing. They're just not going to do it. So just say, hey, give me a half a page or one page, or answer these 5 questions that can really give me a better understanding of you. And then during the season, please just email me or call me right away or text me and just let me know if there's something you think is important for me to know as the coach or the coaching staff, so we can better serve. Instead of trying to diagnose it, during the middle of practice. So tell me about your day. Oh, it wasn't good. And then you're sitting there for 20 minutes trying to get it out of a kid when the parent could have just sent you an email and said, hey, this happened or that happened. The wife and the spouse and I, we've split up for the time being. And then, they might need a little more love, a little less critique and they need a little bit, they need a little softer touch right now. So anyways,
I love that. Again, you just really speak to my heart, coach, in the sense that you're being proactive again in the personal level. That we talked about proactivity and thinking ahead of the game and stuff, but here you are establishing that connection, the communication between the parent and the coach. And these little things can make such a difference because you're right, you're not involved with them. You don't know why the player doesn't have the energy or the focus they normally have today. You have to earn the trust of the parent too, that they can trust you with this information to the extent that they're willing to disclose it. If not, they may not want to. They think, oh, it's going to cost my kid playing time if the coach knows what he's going through. It's not. I'm just truly looking out for the welfare of your child. It's not going to cost that person playing time. It's going to help me be more sensitive to what they need from me at this particular time. I played high school baseball more years ago than I would care to admit. One of the things I remember to this day, coach, was, of course, we didn't have turf back then. It was all natural surface fields. Our coach came to us about halfway through the season at the end of a practice. He says, by the way, you guys have been to all the other fields at all the other, high schools. Who has the best maintained, maybe not the fanciest stadium, but who has the best maintained field of any of the schools? We all said, we do. He says, that's right. You guys do. Do you know who maintains this field? No. Do you see somebody out here working on the field? When you run from the locker room to the field? Yeah. Do you know his name? No. Do you know how many hours he spends on this field? No. Have you ever thanked him for all the hours that he spends on this field? He says, right now, every one of you are going to go over that guy who was getting his tractor ready. He just got done mowing the outfield. You're going to learn his name. His name was Mike Moreno. I remember it to this day. Mike Moreno. And you're going to all thank him and shake his hand for how well and how hard he works on your field. He doesn't get to play on it. You get to play on it. And your batters by him. Back in the day, coach, we didn't have clay and all this stuff to, mold into mounds and batters boxes to make sure that we didn't have big holes and stuff. If it was going to be maintained and maintained well, it was going to be by somebody else. And this guy, he had other jobs to do at the school, but he took pride in maintaining that baseball field. Now, again, nowadays we do a lot of it as teams or whatever, but that just goes to show there are people helping us and we don't even say thank you. My old saying is please and thank you are always welcome. We had parents this year setting up a temporary fence because a permanent one was not allowed on our youth baseball field. Every game, before every home game, they went out and set up. I don't think the players ever thanked them. They never went up to them and said, you know what? Thank you so much for putting up that fence before every game. You didn't have to do it. You did it to try to make our experience better. None of those players ever thanked them. They just said, oh, good. This parent, that parent's going to do that. That's going to be cool for us. Yeah, but they didn't ever go the extra mile and say thank you for it. All right, real quickly here on the player side of things. Actually, as I'm looking over my list here, we've covered a lot of this, but let's just cover the 4 or 5 that we haven't. One of the things I think players don't understand is you can't become on the field or court, depending on the sport, what you're not in life. If you're going to be detail-oriented in baseball, which is all about 1,000 details, you better be that way in your studies. You're not going to take poor study habits and expect to be really focused and detailed in the baseball field. Not going to happen. So you can't become on the mound, for example, what you're not in life. You're not going to keep your cool, perform under pressure, etc. if you haven't been held to those high standards off the field and haven't been required to do the same thing off the field. Those same emotions, those same good or bad habits, they're going to manifest themselves on the field. So you can't become on the field or the court, but you're not in life. We talked about no matter the outcome, you're loved and supported. We talked about you have talents and gifts, abilities that are going to translate to the other areas of your life. Who you're becoming is a lot more important than what you're accomplishing. I think because we're not emphasizing development, we're not really emphasizing to these kids that how you perform on the field is not a direct correlation to your talent. It's directly correlated to your training. If you put in the time and the effort in the most intelligent way to work harder, to be better than your competition, you don't have to be as talented as them. If you play as a team, you're gonna win. more time than not. Players nowadays are so used to the failure part of baseball and things not going well or whatever, they're not asking themselves the most basic question: have you earned the right to be disappointed? How much time on your own are you spending trying to be a better athlete, trying to work on your skills, maybe outside of practice, whether it's even dry mechanics or otherwise? You have to earn the right to be disappointed, meaning that you have to come every day with a teachable spirit and a growth mindset, and then you can be disappointed that your outcome isn't what it should be. And oh, by the way, let's don't get too carried away with our high batting averages and low ERAs. They're kind of like grades in school. If we can be 22-3 as a team and not be very good, I can hit 400 or 500, and it can be all about the aluminum bat that I'm using, not about my swing mechanics. Maybe I won't learn how good or bad I am until I put a wood bat in my hand and face somebody who's really good as a pitcher. So batting averages, ERAs are like grades. They're only meaningful if they were achieved with high standards against really tough competition, and I had to work really hard to get them. I do have to learn how to be a good teammate and hold my teammates accountable. I have to figure out socially, led many times non-verbally, how am I going to hold my teammates to be accountable? Yes, I got to be a role model. I got to show up first, leave last, work harder, hustle harder than everyone else. But there's some communication that needs to go on too. I need to learn how to hold my teammates accountable and us accountable in a positive way so that we as a team can get better. I need to learn to control what I control. We talked about that. I think it's important to have mistake rituals. Mistakes are going to happen, and there's proactive things we need to do to handle it. When we strike out, when we make an error, when we don't have a good game, what are we going to do to look forward and bounce back? We need to know personally how we're going to handle it, and we need to know how we are going to handle it individually. For example, one of the ones I use with all my teams are ground ball to shortstop kicks it, makes an error. The first thing the shortstop does is turn around to the outfield and take a deep breath. Second thing he does is take his foot and swipe it across the ground like I'm wiping it away. The third thing he does, which is the life lesson, is he turns to the second baseman and said, we're going to turn two here. If you want to make yourself feel good in life, you need to make somebody else feel good. You need to direct a positive comment, a positive action towards somebody else. So that's the mistake ritual for all my infielders when they kick a ball, okay? Turning away, swiping the ground, I'm over it, take a deep breath, turn around, and I'm going to say something positive to somebody else, okay? And then finally, something I alluded to before that's so very important is everything you do, if it doesn't turn out well, what do you recognize could have been you did well? Not what went wrong. First, what did I do well? Coaches, this is going to help your attitude too. It's a huge thing missing in coaching. When your team doesn't play well, don't focus solely on what they didn't do well. They did a lot of things right, and a lot of what they did right was as a result of your coaching. Give yourself credit for all the good things your team did. That meeting after the game that you're having with your team, if you're focusing on all the positives, that's going to reinforce, you know what? That's true. I hadn't even thought about that. Thanks, Chris, for bringing that up. I didn't even remember that. We did that. We did it right. Feel good about those things. Let it sink in for you as a coach that you're doing a lot of good things. Okay. We're so hard on our team, but we're also inferentially hard on ourselves, and it can affect our attitude. And that attitude is going to come out toward our team. If the only thing we're focusing on negative things, we're beating ourselves up about those things too, especially our one-loss record. Okay. It's not about that. So give yourself credit too. And finally, along those same lines, the thing that I try to hammer on, and I end every team meeting, every season, I end with this point because I think it's so important in life. Every day is going to have good and bad things. Every practice is going to have good and bad things. Every game is going to have good and bad things. If you want to be happy in life, you need to remember the good things in every practice, in every game, in every day. You need to focus on what went right today so that after your life is done and you look back, you have many, many, many happy memories. And as you live day to day, you're living on happy thoughts. That's going to protect your mental health. That's going to keep you moving forward in an excited, inspired way. You're not denying that you're not perfect. You're not denying that you don't have things to work on, but you're focusing on, you're feeling good about all the things that are right, that maybe you're taking for granted about yourself, about your team, about school, and about life. Let's not talk about the teacher that's terrible. Let's focus on the teachers that are really good. All right. I may not have some things in my personal life, but I still might have a lot more things than other people. Okay. Let's feel good about those things. Let's take the positives. So you can see how when you get done with a drill or you're working on a drill, you're focusing first on the positive. And when you talk after a game, you're focusing on the positive. You're sending this message that every day has things to be thankful for and we can feel good about. And boy, that goes a long way to building a healthy, happy, and successful person.
That's awesome, coach. Yeah, I've used the gratitude journal approach with many youth in some of the most awful situations, just the worst family lives, inner city, ghetto, hood, just no money, just nothing going for them, foster, really sad
Yeah.
situations. And I've done this for many years and I continue to do this. Every year I do a gratitude journal project with many of these youth, and
Nice.
every single time I do it, just the impact that it has and the feedback is amazing. And so simply, I just have them go for 30 days, write 5 things every day they're thankful for, and they can't write the
Nice.
same thing twice. So they go, hey, coach, I can't do 150 things to be thankful for. Well, after 30 days, they go, you know what? I got another 50 I could add to this because they start being thankful for all the little things. And so, as a coach, how about this, coaches? What if, at a minimum, as the head coach or the manager, you write down one thing for every single player? You go out there with the list already made, a little sheet or a little notebook or a clipboard, even better, and have each player's name on there and write something that they did good in that game. Because
Yeah.
remembering what 12 kids did over the course of 2 hours is very difficult. It makes for a long story and a long message at the end when the kids want to go get pizza and ice cream. It'll train you to see good things. And I would take it a step further if it's your second or third year of coaching. I would have your assistant coaches write down one thing they saw each player do well. So at the end of the game, you may have 2 or 3 things you can quickly just share out with each player in front of everybody that they did well. This doesn't need to take more than about 2 or 3 minutes. Then the kids start seeing the positives. They start seeing the things they're doing well. They start to have a different paradigm. You go, well, Coach Bo, we got to talk about things we did wrong. We can get better just as fast, if not faster, by really having that positive, productive, proactive mindset, looking at the things that we're doing great and building off those while also addressing our areas of need and lack.
I had a parent do it one time for the entire season. You know, I have a parent take photographs or videos of the team. I had one parent do that for every game, watch the team and write down positive comments about the team and who was doing what, and actually gave it to the players at the end of the year, all of the things that this parent observed. At the end of the season, I've had players write down, you know how you have a secret Santa or a person that you're going to give a gift to or whatever? I've had players say, okay, I want you to write down at least one thing that that player did that you were proud of that player doing for the team, for you during the season. And I've had players tell me that they kept those for the rest of their lives, those feedbacks from their teammates that that teammate appreciated this. You are always a good listener. You always did this. Those kind of things are so, so powerful. And then finally, my heartfelt handshake. I can't forget this. I don't know if people know it, but if you take your hands, or if I took my hand and press it against yours really hard for 10 seconds, and then I slowly pull it apart, you can actually feel, even after the hands are separated, the person's hand's still there. It's like it's a connection to their heart. And so what we do is we press hands, we take players, pair them up, we take coaches with players, pair them up, different every game, every practice. And while we're pressing the hands together with that other player or coach, you're saying, I appreciated this about you today. And then after each exchanges what they were proud of, appreciated about that player, coach, whatever, they slowly pull it away so they can still feel the connection. Then they take their hands and make it into a fist, and they put their fist over their heart, meaning I'm going to take what you said about me that was positive, I'm going to put it right here in my heart, and I'm going to carry it home with me. It is really powerful, really powerful. I call it the heartfelt handshake.
That is awesome, coach. I love that heartfelt handshake. Well, thank you so much, Coach Sarancik, for coming on here with all your wisdom. Is there anything you want to add before we part ways here?
Yeah, just thank the coaches for listening. Thank you for having me. Thank you for how hard you work. Coach Bo, you work as hard as anybody I know to give practical, usable advice, counsel to these coaches to be the best can be. The passion that you have for the sport and for your other coaches and for the players that you're helping out is really, really obvious. And you have put a ton of time over a very, very long period of time in an extraordinary way. It's very, very obvious and very much appreciated by all of us out here that are part of your audience. So thank you again for allowing me to do it. I hope we can continue to do it. We'll stay in touch. Let's do it again.
Yeah, coach, I love having you on. I think we got a good thing going here, and we'll just have you come on every year and have you share out. I know you got 5 or 6, 10, 12 more topics you could dive into for episodes on end. So thank you so much for your time, coach. I
Hey.
appreciate you being here.
All right. You take care. Thank you.
That wraps up the interview with Coach Sarancik. Very thankful that he could give us so much time and share out so much actionable, specific advice, tips, strategies that we can use immediately or in the upcoming season with all of our players. You can find all of Coach Sarancik's resources, books, things like that over at coachingchampionsforlife.com. Coachingchampionsforlife.com. Always love having Coach Sarancik on. He's in it for the right reasons, a wonderful resource for all of us. All right, next week we are going to discuss a very popular topic, long toss, throwing routine. We're going to talk about the pros, the cons of long toss. I'm going to share what I believe is a unique take on long toss. We're going to dive into it. So after the episode, you're going to know everything you need to know about the pros and the cons, the reasons to do long toss, and much more. We're going to talk all things long toss next week. Definitely a really big topic in the baseball world. If you have any questions before next week, send those to me. I can answer them on the air. Until next week, let's keep taking care of our health so we can be at our best for our families, our close friends, our team, our players. You're doing a great thing being a coach, something to be very proud of. Keep taking care of yourself, your foundations, and y'all take care. Until next week, adios.